Hello and welcome back to Outhouse Studio Devlogs. Since our last video, we've added a new enemy type and implemented an enemy AI system. We went through a few iterations on this. So our main objective going into this new enemy AI feature was to allow for enemies to choose a skill from a set of skills given some information about the game's state. Important sub-objectives here were to allow ourselves to easily be able to define new behaviors for enemy AI, as well as to be able to make the final skill selection still have an element of randomness. So first, on the new enemy type, the Fallen Mage, we added a new enemy. This is an absolutely gorgeous enemy who deals ranged magical damage to the members of the player's party. Moving forward to the first AI iteration, in the first iteration, the basic idea was that given a list of skills associated to the enemy character and a series of conditions, we should affect each skill's probability of being selected for that character. So please note that for the moment, the target the enemy AI selects is completely random for the MVP. So in other words, target selection of the player's party is random, but skill selection given the target is managed by a brain that operates based on some conditions. We developed 4 conditions we wanted to work on for the MVP. First, a condition for target having some property value, a condition for a target having some status effect, a condition for a target having performed some number of actions, and a condition for a skill having been performed within some number of rounds. Note here that we define a round as being the time since the character last performed any skill. So for each of the above conditions, on the condition evaluates to true, there would be some skill selection criteria to specify which skills we want to prioritize given that the condition passes. So for instance, if I have skills 1, 2, 3, and I have condition if my target has health less than 30, then select all skills with an even ID, random, like for instance, right? Then I would want to assign a higher priority to skill number 2 in that scenario. When we say assign a higher priority to some skill, it means that we assign to each skill some priority value, and we are incrementing that priority for every time we're according a higher priority to a skill. So in the end, for each skill, we define the skill's priority by the sum of all skill priorities to know the likelihood of the skill being selected. We then generate a random number and use this to make the final skill selection to be used by the enemy on the target. It was really important to us to maintain some degree of randomness in spite of our AI. We only ever want to be able to affect the probability of a skill being selected, or rather encourage an enemy's decision. We don't want to tell them exactly what to do. So in our second iteration on the enemy AI, to make the creation of enemy AI assets easier, the thing is, we realized after our first iteration that actually creating new AI behaviors was kind of a pain with the way we were doing it. We were using scriptable objects to associate each specific enemy character with a specific set of AI behaviors, and in our first iteration we had a system that was a little too rigid with these scriptable objects. For instance, we were making it so that each condition was its own scriptable object, and each subsection of the condition was also its own scriptable object, and so on. It was generating a lot of overhead and duplicated objects that had no real benefit in existing, where the only difference between these objects could be as little as a single value. Now, we have a single scriptable object that contains a more dynamic collection of conditions without relying on definition of other scriptable objects. And we did this by relying more on class definition as opposed to scriptable objects. So in addition, we've taken pains to make the condition creation much more legible. The idea here is to try and be able to delegate as much as possible the task of creating new skills to people who aren't necessarily familiar with code. This way, everybody can contribute to making a fun new behavior to be associated to the enemy AI. So this is where we got since our last video. Next on the roadmap for us is going to be to start working on an upgrade screen where the player's surviving party members will be able to get their stats increased, so for instance increased health and critical damage chance, as well as be given the option to pick from a list of 3 new skills randomly generated for each of their surviving party members. On behalf of Outhouse Studios, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more, and we'll catch you next time.